Do words really have power? Yes. They have incredible power. And I hope tonight, in the brief time that we have together, that I can share maybe one thought, one idea, one word or concept that can help you with your relationships, that can help you with your abundance, that can help you with what matters most. Now, I don't share the same presentation. How many of you just recently heard me? A couple of you up in Ogden, you came up to me. You're not going to hear the same presentation, but there will be elements of that. So whoever I prepared this presentation for tonight, I hope you hear it. And I hope it connects with you. And that you'll do something different as a result of that.
Before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
31 words uttered in 1961 by John F. Kennedy. Have you ever heard that before? Anybody ever watched that clip? Vaughn and I were just talking on the break before I came up about the limitations and the power of words. If words can send a man and later a woman to the moon and back, what can they do for you? What could they really do for you? In fact, where you're sitting, is it Gwenna? Did I say your name right? I'm speaking in Seattle, Washington for the number 3 office of New York Life. 2 years ago, a woman sitting on the front row, she was the number 3 agent out of 10,000 agents in the world. And after I played that clip, she just put her hand up and she said, my father worked for NASA. I was a young girl in 1961. What did they say when JFK said we're going to go to the moon? Did everybody go, that's a great idea? We hadn't thought of that. What did they say? He's crazy. He might be a handsome guy, but he's a crazy guy. And then she said 8 years later, her father came home and said, we did it. Her father thought he was crazy in 61, working for NASA 8 years later. So there's one thought with your relationships, with what's most important to you. If you know how you're going to achieve it, you're probably not thinking big enough. If we know how we're going to do it, we need to stretch where we're going. I hope today I can stretch your minds a little bit, because when we have a new idea, our mind stretches and we're told it never returns to its original dimensions. That's what's fun about being part of a personal development organization like Strongbrook Mentoring. And I'm honored to be here. This is our first start, Chris and Tyler, and I'm absolutely thrilled and honored to be here. I'm going to start with my favorite word here. Will you say that out loud? Namaste. Namaste. Words have a certain energy. They really do. Words look a lot like what they sound like. What does namaste mean? Anybody in this room? What does namaste mean? Please. I honor the universe. I honor the uniqueness. I honor the divinity. I honor what you do best. And you said, I honor it in you. Before I can honor it in somebody else, I need to honor it in who? In me. We've got to have a relationship with ourselves before we can have a relationship with somebody else. We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we see ourselves. Now, I recently asked, what does namaste mean? And a gentleman, he looked a lot like you, Ted. He said, namaste means that yoga class is almost over. And I thought, you know what? They're probably right. And I'm not a great yoga person. I'm Mr. Concrete. Stephen Palmer knows. We've been together in Zion Park a few times. Namaste. Just think of this. If you were to grow up in Nepal, your mother or father at the age of 4 or 5, how old is she right here, this beautiful little girl? How old are you? 7 years of age. What's your name? Josie? Jesse. Do you mind if I call you Josie? Jesse? Jesse. If you grew up in Nepal, you know what? Your mother, who's sitting right next to you, would say, your right hand represents your creator. I'm a person of belief and faith. We have a creator. You couldn't have a gift without a giver of your gifts. And you honor the giver of your gifts when you open them and serve others with them. Well, they start, when you do Namaste, you bring the hands together. I just went to India last year. Everywhere we went, you'd walk into a hotel, Namaste. They bring this hand together. The second hand, Jessie would be taught by her mother in Nepal, that means it's you. You, the human being with incredible potential. And when you bring those two together, you become whole. And they often will touch their mind or their third eye, and then they'll come down to their heart and open their hands, signifying that when we open our gifts, we honor the giver of that gift. Now, I'm going to show a clip, because one of the biggest things that I try to do, whether I'm coaching or speaking or writing, is help people tap into their gifts of greatness. They're just not gifts. They're gifts of greatness. It's what you do better than anyone in the world. There's nobody like you. 7 billion people in the world. Anybody know who this is? I don't always play this clip. I did a few weeks ago, but who is that up on stage? Susan Boyle. Now, before I play the clip, let me just paint the picture. I grew up as the second of 2 boys to a teenage alcoholic, and I actually had a great life because I could do anything I wanted. There were no curfews. You could go storm other people's homes for food. You could do whatever you wanted. But I had a mother who recovered in my teen years, and she taught me that you can achieve anything you want in life if you leave other people better, if you look for the goodness, the divinity, the namaste, the greatness in other people, and leave them better. My mother never said a cross word to me. She's buried in the Orem Cemetery. She was 4'11", 98 pounds, little redhead soaking wet. Incredible woman, because she believed in me. Her mother didn't believe in her, because her mother would say, you'll never marry the right guy. And she was married 6 times. And I had 6 different stepfathers. And I remember about the 5th stepfather, or 4th, I can't even remember his name, it was either Ralph or Vince or Carl. And I shouldn't joke about that, but it's the truth. And he had his bags to move in the house, and he went to put his hand out, said, hi, I'm your new stepfather. And I remember thinking, I wouldn't unpack those bags if I were you, cowboy, because it's been rotating through here pretty quick. Now, my mother's grandmother was also an alcoholic, and my grandmother never did recover. My mother did change lives. At her funeral, tall, dark, handsome man said, your mother changed my life. Well, she changed my life because she believed in me. She broke the chain. I don't know what your past is like, but I still don't know how, but she broke the chain. She would never said an unkind, mean word to me unless I was sarcastic or rude to somebody, which you can be as an adolescent. And then you didn't want to have that forever meeting with little Barbara. Susan Boyle didn't have the same mother that I did. Her mother, when she would try to sing, she would say, quit singing. Stop doing that. You're disabled. You're not a singer. You have no talent. I just saw you say, wow, what's your first name? Susie. I mean, every child deserves a parent who believes in them. So for you to hear that and say, wow, can you imagine? I heard her interviewed. So let's just set the stage here. She goes on this stage at the age of 47 years old. She's in maybe chapter 2 of her life. I'm hoping that I'm in chapter 2 of my life, but now she goes up on this stage. Can you imagine the courage it took for her to walk on this stage? Just remember these words as I play this clip. They're from Joseph Campbell, who wrote Power of Myth. The cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek. The cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek. She went into the cave with all the fear, with everything that she'd been programmed with. She went in anyway, and she found the treasure. Is it okay if how many of you watched this before? Well, you look around the room, we need some tissues. Chris, you need to get Charmin to be a sponsor. Lorene, did I say your name right? You got a very visceral reaction, just as Heather did right behind you. So I want to ask you too, why did that impact you so deeply as you watched that? And I'll repeat what she shares so that you can hear it.
Well, actually, I just had a day like that today.
Sure. So she said, I actually just had a day like that today. So let's just stop for just a minute. We have a lot of content. We spend 100 hours up here. I don't think you'd want to be here for 100 hours. But there's that much to talk about because, again, every word that we think and every word that we speak, every thought and word, it creates our future. And I show that clip to remind you to never, ever, ever let anybody else decide for you what you can or cannot do. I don't know what the conversation was. I'd love to talk to you about it after. I don't know what that was like. But there are two things to remember. Haters or herders. And this is from Sean Stevenson. It's not from me. He's a little 3-foot giant. He's an internet YouTube phenomenon. He speaks at my events occasionally, dear friend. And generally people that are hurting are hating. And two, people want to save you from who? From who? From themselves. They don't want to save you from yourself. They want to save you from, I knew I liked you, from themselves because they don't dare dream that big. So how dare you dream that big? One of the things you'll hear from me 2 or 3 times, and Jim Rohn talked about it a lot, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So you want to change your life right now? Change who you're spending your time with. That's why this mentoring network is so valuable. You can choose. Here are the 5 people I want to spend my time with. Show me your friends. My son helped us sign all these books over at the Marriott before I came over. Show me your friends, I say to Connor over and over and over again, and I'll show you your future. You can only afford to spend quality time with people who are positive, upbeat, growing. When people are investing in themselves, they're growing. Growth doesn't lead to happiness. Growth is happiness. So you want to be around somebody happy? Be around somebody who's growing. Heather, that had an impact on you. I mean, you're sitting next to a tall, dark, handsome cowboy there with Matt, so I mean, it looks like everything's going okay. Why did that have such a big impact on you?
You just get so happy for it.
Isn't that? She said you get so happy for her. When someone opens one of their gifts of greatness, and by the way, this is a key to move from fear to love, from scarcity to abundance. Sometimes we say, oh, I don't dare do that because I don't think I'm enough. If you don't think you're enough, there will never, ever, ever be enough. But when you know that you are enough, that you were created perfectly, then there will be enough, and there will be enough for everybody. And then we go from fear to love, from scarcity to abundance. And so you went to abundance, Heather, when you watched that. It didn't take away anything from you that she succeeded. It made you want to succeed in your own unique ability. How do you know what your greatest gifts are? How can we tell? Let me share a couple of keys. One, you've heard it before, nature works, but nature doesn't work. It doesn't work. When you're doing what you're meant to do, you'll say, I would do this for free. People will say, because success leaves clues, you're a natural at this. You were born to this. That's second nature to you. And again, you'll come back and say, yeah, I would do this for free. Now, sometimes it's a lot of work. A lot of you heard Stephen Palmer this morning. He's a very gifted writer. It takes a lot of work and discipline. I know. I've got another book I got to get done. And he sits down and says, how many pages you written this week? How many words you written? Doesn't mean that you don't sacrifice, but it's what you are great at. There's a lot of things I'm not very good at. A lot. I'm kind of good at writing, speaking, coaching, and connecting. That's it. In fact, I took a test. I'm going to borrow Donna's notebook. Can I borrow your notebook, Donna? I was at the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation. I was at Franklin Quest. I was a partner in the company. We were growing the business, and I wasn't quite happy with what I was doing. I was marketing, selling, teaching, training trainers. And so I went to have my natural gifts tested. And one of the tests was for tweezer dexterity. Anybody here a surgeon or really good with tweezer dexterity? You are, Lee? You're good at that? So, and you're good at that, Kevin? Kevin with a C, I love that. I'm horrible. I thought I was really good. 2 days of testing. I'm doing the best I can. The next day, in Wilshire Boulevard, right on the edge of Beverly Hills and Los Angeles, they said, Kevin, out of the hundreds of thousands of people that we've tested, and it was several 100,000, you're in the bottom 1/10 of 1/100th of 1% for having tweezer dexterity. So, if I decide before I take that test that I'm going to be a great brain surgeon, how many people think people are going to be lining up at my door? Yeah, I'd be a killer surgeon. If I'm your surgeon, you are dead. I took another test. It was for engineering capacity. And you go through all these little blocks. Anybody good with engineering in here?
Got an engineering degree.
Kevin, you're good at everything. Kevin's good at engineering degree. You would. Tweezer dexterity engineering would work. Guess what? I was in the bottom percentile of that. And then they brought out a piece of paper. And I always like to ask if I can get somebody's notes. Donna, you're taking a lot of notes. Do you always take notes like this? You're a note taker, but they're kind of brutal. You ought to see what she's written about me already. He has the roundest face I've ever seen. I can't believe, Donna, I can't believe you would write that. An hour and 15 minutes for Kevin Hall, Serenity Now. You wrote that, Donna. I cannot believe. I thought we were friends. They gave me a notepad with a word on it, and it was a test for idea for you. The ability to create ideas around what? A word. And it took 2.5 to 3 minutes. Most people generally filled up a half a page. I filled up the page, turned over, filled up the next page. They ran in, gave me a second page, new word, third page, new word, fourth page, new word, fifth page, and I wrote 5.5 pages in about 3 minutes. And then they said, Kevin, you know what you could be great at? You should write. And you know what you ought to write about? Vaughn, what do you think? Words. And that began the journey that I'm on now. And I hid from it for a while. How many of you have a book in you? We all have a book. A lot of us have a book in us. How many books you written, Stephen? 21. I want to be like Stephen when I grow up. Okay? Because he's had the discipline to do that. You know why most people don't finish a book? Because if you write a book, people are going to tell you what? If they like it or not. And that's kind of a scary thing, so it's better to have been writing a book than to have written a book. But guess what? The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. I hid from it for several years, and then I said it's time to get it done. And it's changed my life. I get to travel all over the world. I'm blessed to do what I do. I don't take it ever for granted, but that test helped me connect with maybe, you know what, they said you should sell, you should market. That was part of idea for it. That should be part of, you should present for sure, but they said you will never be fulfilled until you write. And guess what? Writing, as much as I enjoy it, it's still a little bit, it's painfully sweet. Because there are other things. I like to be around people, I like to speak, I like to coach, I like to be outdoors. So it is, but when I'm done writing something, and it may take me 10 times longer than Stephen to do it, but when I'm done, there's nothing, I mean, I guess it's when it's done. But when you write something and you say, oh, I gave it my best. There's nothing quite like that. I want you to think right now how you can live into that namaste by saying, what gift have I been ignoring? And maybe I ignored it because I didn't think I was enough. You're enough. Who can you know how you make that switch? You make a commitment to serve somebody with that gift, just like Suzanne Boyle did. There are 3 questions that I will share if I'm having a private coaching session with someone. And I only coach 3 or 4 people a year. I just signed up somebody yesterday, and it's like $25,000 a year. That's what it is. The first thing I'll do, and I'll just share it in this group, there's 3 questions. And I want you to write these 3 questions down. Whether you're here live or you're watching on the live stream that's coming in, write these 3 questions down. 1, how can I bring more joy into my life each day? Incredible question. You're here to have joy. How can I bring more joy? 2, I'm waiting, Dan. 1, how can I bring more joy into my life each day? And question 2, how can I become greater at what I'm greatest at? That's what this whole gathering is here. That's what you're doing in this community. You have a chance to align yourself with mentors that can teach you how to be greater at what you're greatest at. And you have some of the finest people in the world. I wish I'd had this. I wish I'd had this when I was 7 years old. To see you at 7 in here learning things like this, it's remarkable. Question 3. How can I best serve others with my greatness? That's a magical question, and that's when we go from fear to love. Because it isn't about you being up, just serve other people. We love those we serve. We start to love ourselves more when we serve them with our greatest gift. Question 3, how can I best serve others with my greatness? Well, we'll come back and answer a couple of those questions and lay a framework for that. In the next 7.5 minutes, I'd like to share a concept tonight for this group that I believe has the potential to have more impact for your personal happiness, fulfillment, abundance than any concept that we'll talk about tonight. They're all important words. But this is a word that I learned by going to Vienna, Austria. And I didn't realize this until Chris and I talked in Cologne just before I came up. You're connected to Germany. You're connected. You have a heritage there. I had gone back to Vienna, Austria. We're actually taking a Genshai journey, and I'll tell you about that. I gave away the word to Vienna, Austria in September, middle of September. This is what Vienna looks like. Anybody been to Vienna? So look at that. Right here, you got to be sitting in the back part of the room right over. Put your hands up again. I want to see who's been to Vienna. It is, will you do me a favor and just switch and come sit over here? You're on the wrong side. You might find another guy that'll stroke your hair if you come over here. Vienna looks like this around Christmas. And I had gone to visit Viktor Frankl's family. Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And if you don't have that book, I mean, you can get it on Amazon for like $10 or $12. It's ridiculous. You could get one of the 10 most influential books ever written by one of the all-time greats who's ever walked the earth, I believe, in Viktor Frankl. And I'd spent time with his widow Ellie and with his grandson and granddaughter and daughter and family and friends. And my last night in Vienna, I'd been there a week, I went in to see, speaking of a mentor, Chris and Tyler and Ryan and Ben, that's Mother Teresa's mentor. Everybody needs a mentor. That's in the middle of the St. Stephen's Cathedral, which is what Vienna is built around. They just did an accord, right, with Iran. And where was our Secretary of State? Do you know where he visited? The St. Stephen's Cathedral. Whether you like that accord or not, it happened in Vienna this week, and that was the first place he went. I was there. That's Mother Teresa's mentor, Mother Teresa. She said, do little things with great love, and then Mother Teresa started to share that. And then Nike stole it, and they have that slogan, just do it now. But do little things with great love, the power of a mentor. So I went back, I reflected on her life. I walked out that night. I'd been to Victor's writing studio. I had been with his family. I'd been to the gymnasium, to the clinic. I'd spent the entire week there, and I step out of that cathedral, take 75 cobbled steps approximately to this store. It's the India fabric store. It looked like it came from a whole different generation, a different place, right in the middle of Vienna. I have a daughter, Susan, getting married. We have 4 daughters. Maybe have 4 daughters in here? I'm not a hippie, but try these names. These are their real names. Summer, Season, Star, and Sharwan. Well, most people don't laugh and just have, you laugh out of your nose, by the way, when you laugh. That was kind of a nostril laugh. Sharwan means beautiful Indian princess. or so we've told her. That's what her name means. And some days she is, and some days she isn't. You laugh anytime you want. I love that. You're a snorter. You snort anytime you want. I have a daughter, Susan, getting married. She's a fashion designer. What if I go into this store, and these pictures don't even do it justice. There were silks and linens from all over the world, but they were from India. And I thought, what if I could get her wedding dress fabric or her maid of honor or bridesmaid? Wouldn't that be a cool gift? It was just before Christmas. All the lights are out. And then this man, you can't see it very well with that picture, Praveen Cherkori. He'll be at our Gensha event in January. He's a world-renowned artist from India. He's the preeminent artist in India, sells paintings now in excess of 6 figures, $100,000 to $300,000. It just stayed at his home in Jaipur. I didn't even know who he was. But in just a moment, he heard that I'd been with Viktor Frankl's family. He used to sell Viktor scarves for his wife, Ellie, when he came out of the concentration camps. And by the way, you know who Viktor is? He was prisoner number 119, 104. They couldn't even call him by name. They ripped up everything that he had, his heart, his manuscript, killed his mother, his father, his first bride, their unborn child, brother, sister. He lost everything. And then he wrote these words. And Chris, when you said this before I got up, I think of these words, that he could write these words, and this was the connection I had with Praveen, because he knew Viktor. That's why I met him that night. Viktor wrote these, conceived of this in his 4-year dark chapter, in one of the darkest chapters of civilization. He said, you can take away anything from a man. I know he meant a man or a woman, but the actual quote is, and it's the second most highlighted section of Aspire. You can take anything away from a man but the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's, what, Chris? To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Now, Karina, Alex, you met Viktor's grandson, Alex. You met him. You hung out with him. He conceived of that idea when he was sleeping on a bed, on a cot, with 4 or 5 other men on his side like a sardine, being cursed at, whipped at on the hour, so that when they woke, there was no energy. When you're sleep deprived for 4 years, you don't have a lot of energy left. I can't even fathom what that might be like. But Viktor still said, you get to choose. And he wouldn't let them take it away. So we make this connection because of a little pin of the Statue of Responsibility. Stephen, stand up so they can just see that. This is a small enough group. You see that right there? You'll go up to Steve and ask him about that. That's a pin. It was a little bit smaller that was on my lapel. He asked about that, heard that I'd been with Viktor, and this I'm going to jump into, thanks for putting that on the live stream. He then goes behind the counter and produces. And you've seen it, the Book of Greats. It's this high, it's that wide. And he said, Kevin, you've been with the Frankel family? You must be one of the greats. And here's this kid born in a trailer court to a teenage alcoholic. I don't know that I'm one of the greats. They're royalty from India. That's Ray Charles' signature to the left. Mother Teresa crossed his path. That's Indira Gandhi. And then he turned to a page that had Viktor Frankl's signature in that book. And he held that book out and said, Kevin, you must be one of the greats. Will you sign my Book of Greats? You said, oh my goodness, what would you do in that setting?
I'd be overwhelmed.
You'd be overwhelmed. You'd sign it. Guess what? I didn't understand the word I'm going to teach you that he then taught me, because I didn't feel too Gandhi-ish that day. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. Mother Teresa, do little things with great love. Just do it. I didn't feel Mother Teresa. I didn't feel Viktor Frankl. What is to give light, he said, must endure burning. And so I said, I'm sorry, I can't sign your book. I said that. And he grabbed my elbow, walked me out the door and said, we need to have a dinner. We walked 2 blocks in the center of Vienna, the schnitzel capital of the world. We go to a Chinese restaurant. And we have a 5-hour dinner. I'm hungry 5 hours later. But he teaches me a word. I still remember this. I remember this as if it were yesterday. We talked at the break too. You grew up in Mexico City. He came around. He ordered dinner for us. He sat right next to me on the table. And he said, Kevin, you're from the West. I'm from the East. You're light skinned. I'm dark skinned. What do you believe about me? That's the conversation that started. And I remember thinking the words of my mother And I said, well, gee, you're my brother. We were created by the same creator, right? So that would make us brothers. And that beautiful, he's got a beautiful smile, beautiful skin, big pearly white teeth. He said, that's what I believe. He came around to my side of the table, and then he taught me a word that I'm going to share with you now that changed my world. Changed the whole course of the direction of my life, and I believe it can change yours as well. He said, we grew up in Calcutta among the poorest of the poor. If you've ever been to Calcutta, India, it is abject poverty. And he said, if I were to pass a beggar in the street and toss them a coin, my mother would grab me and say, you're not practicing this word. So he taught me this word.